So today we're going to be talking about culture and what we've learned at Human Synergistics for 40 plus years. But here's the fun part. We're going to be creating our own culture. And just as quickly, we're going to tear it down. So you may have done a similar activity with my colleague Michael, and if so, this will be a great refresher with some awesome additional insights from Angie.
Leaders drive culture. We know this. We talk about tone at the top. We talk about how they act and how they behave. We talk about what do they pay attention to. We talk about what's rewarded, what's accepted. So just by sometimes not doing something sends a message, right? And so it's really important to understand that, hey, I accept this behavior. I do think that it's culture in many ways, that people are really at a point where they want to work for an organization that matches their values, that matches the way they want to work, the way they want to engage. And if that's not happening, they're willing to walk and find an organization that does support those things. And so I think that's becoming more and more of a reality for organizations. And so it's important to make sure that they're really focused on those things that the people that they're hiring match the value system that they have within their organization.
Talking about success not being wrapped up in just the initial strategy, but the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Are you as a leader willing to adapt, pivot, change plans, and adjust to as a leader to find success, with the overall theme being marry the mission, but date the method because things change? And I think that flexibility really speaks to culture, but also a lot of the superhero elements that we were just talking about. If you're trying to celebrate success, but also understanding that things are going to happen.
I've learned a lot about living your values and demonstrating your accountability to each other, and always demonstrating as a leader that you're a work in progress. So you normalize a culture of we're all rolling up our sleeves, and nobody's like coming from this expectation like, well, you need to do this. So I really quickly, I came up with a CHAI recipe, which is an acronym: compassion, humility, accountability, and insistence. And whether it's doing inclusion work or emotional intelligence work, I find that these values are really important, especially the humility and accountability piece, to really engender that trust in the long term.
But I have a question on reviews. So Patty, we have the same thing where, we've got your performance goals, we've got your development goals, and then we have the core values listed out, and they are defined. But today, the performance, like overall rating, it's not weighted at all on the competencies and values. And I'm curious what you all do in your organizations.
One, I'd be glad to take it offline and we can kind of dig into the topic. We did not weight, our reviews are not weighted either. And that was a leadership decision.
Yeah, two of the organizations I worked for was 50-50. And because it was what and how is how we defined it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just about what you did, it was how you did it. And so they were weighted 50-50. You could override it if you wanted to, but when it calculated in the system, it calculated 50-50.
The example that I want to share is that we lift up positive Google reviews on all of our all agency calls. So there are shout outs to specific teams and parts of our organization and individuals who are named in Google reviews as examples of, so that's an example of how we're living and showcasing our values without actually naming it. We're naming it as something that we do value, but we haven't listed it like we've been talking about in the formal sense when we like showcased what are our core values.